Welcome to the Runway, where we cover current events in crypto, Web3, and tech. It's Wednesday, May 22nd. Let's take off. A lot of action today, guys. First up, crypto lobby wins. House passes FIT21 as Democrats deride historic regulatory framework. Establishing jurisdiction between U.S. regulatory agencies, the bill seeks to develop a clear framework for crypto regulation. This is probably the biggest news of the week. This is a historic moment. For so long, crypto has been treated as this underground type of thing here in the U.S. There's been really no legal clarity, and the current administration has really used that to attack the industry behind the scenes. So today, even though it says here in this article that obviously there are many Democrats who deride the historic regulatory framework, it looks like 99% of all Republicans supported this bill in the House of Representatives, and you did have at least 20 to 30% of Democrats crossing the aisle and voting for this. This is a good day for America. It might not be a perfect piece of legislation, but at least it sets the groundwork to hold people accountable. It sets some rules so people like Gary Gensler can't just make shit up on the fly and make up their own rules and do whatever the hell they feel like. It curtails and curbs their power. If we look here, we read through some of this. Gensler is obviously not very happy about this, but it looks like there were many positive comments and positive things said here. This is a pretty large gap for the vote. It looks like the majority of Congress realized that this was a smart and a good thing to do here. Hopefully, we'll see what happens in the Senate. I hope it passes the Senate, but, it's very split in the Senate, so we'll see. The Senate did repeal SAB 121, which was the SEC's, the most highly regulated institutions. They basically just said, oh, you can't custody crypto like you can other assets, which just de facto made it so only riskier or, unregulated sort of entities could participate in that. The nice thing about this bill, from what I've read, is that it allows, there's a pathway, there's a process for a framework here that decides, right? So here it curtails the SEC's regulatory remit. FIT21 gives the CFTC exclusive regulatory authority over digital asset commodities. Under the bill, criteria is provided for determining that status based on a project's level of decentralization, looking at factors such as how much of a token supply a party owns or a blockchain's susceptibility to influence from a single party. So this is a very good thing, right? Patrick McHenry here says that the SEC and the CFTC are currently in a food fight for control of this asset class. They've created an impossible situation where the same firms are subject to competing and contradictory enforcement actions by the two different agencies, leaving consumers behind, leaving innovators behind. He continued, FIT21 fixes this, and it may not be perfect. It's better than having no pathway, no clarity, right, by Congress, which is who's supposed to make the laws, right? Of course, we've got Maxine Waters blasted the bill. This bill still provides major exemptions from critical securities laws, she said. She later said that crypto companies are refusing to register and that the bill would exonerate them and give them the opportunity to operate without regulation. How can this happen, she said. She's obviously uneducated and hasn't done her research, and there's no way for anybody to register. The only company that has apparently ever registered with the SEC is this shill called Prometheum, which is like some lobbying group connected to China, and has apparently got this special license, even though they sell no product, have no business. Probably one of the shadiest things I've ever seen in my life, and that's who Gary Gensler is using. They have zero business, and they took somebody that left the SEC and joined the board as like the chief revenue officer or something. It's like an inside con job, it's kind of scam thing that is going on here. I don't know how he's getting away with this nonsense, but we've literally seen hundreds of different companies and crypto companies try to engage and talk to the SEC in good faith with nothing to show for it. There's been no positive engagement. There's been no pathway. There's been no way to register. There's been literally absolutely nothing. So here we've got this U.S. House Committee on Financial Services, the Democrats. I urge my colleagues to stand up. Don't be afraid of big crypto and stand for everyday investors and consumers. I don't know where they come up with this messaging or this nonsense. Big crypto? You got to be kidding me. It's unbelievable what they're even saying here. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just total disconnect with the American population. Very disappointing, right? So here's another article that is talking about the SEC. Gensler says House bill would undermine regulators' crypto capital markets oversight. So, of course, Gensler is here fighting against the bill. This was hours before the vote. Obviously, we know that the vote passed, which is very good for America. So here's these radical claims by him. The Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act would hurt investors and hamper the U.S. Securities and Exchanges Commission's work, SEC Chair Gensler said once. He is just absolutely delusional. Good that he has finally been checked, which is very nice to see. Next up, Ethereum ETF confirmed, VanEck Spot Ether ETF listed by DTCC. So this is very interesting. There's a lot going on here behind the scenes. It seems that tomorrow we are going to have an approval of these Ethereum ETFs. I mean, I think that would be an extremely bullish thing, and I guess we'll find out tomorrow, and we'll see what the stance is. It looks like there's a lot of smart money betting on this, right? So, because if we look here at crypto lawyer Jake Chervinsky, he posted on X, he said that for months, crypto has been winning the political battle. He also speculated that former President Donald Trump's endorsement of cryptocurrency compelled the administration of President Joe Biden to shift its policy. So I think the Biden administration and the Democrats are currently scrambling. There's, a disconnect on both sides. They don't really have they're not sure where they're going to land, what the messaging is. I think they were kind of shocked by the support that Trump got as we've slowly watched his evolution, watch him launch his NFT collection, his wife launched an NFT collection, watch him have people like Vivek in his ear teaching him about crypto, teaching him about Bitcoin. And then he also launched a Bitcoin Ordinals collection, NFT collection. Then he had this event where people who held his NFTs could attend Mar-a-Lago and have access to him. So he's actually one of the few people who's using the NFT technology and showing the pros of the technology itself, right? So you can see the shift since that. God, I can't remember the guy's name who was this guy was kind of crooked. I'm blocking on his name, but he was part of his administration. He was very anti-crypto before, but now you see the 180 that Trump's done here, and as he's educated himself, as he has smart people and as they're talking to him about this, he's embracing. I think he's not like a rah totally all in guy, but I think he understands the main message, which is that this is jobs, this is innovation, this is technology we want in the USA, right? We don't want all these developers, all these people to flee the USA, which is a very simple thing for him. And I think that actually adds even more credibility to all this. So here we see that here he said, let's read Jake's actual tweet here. He says that it's hard to believe this SEC would do us any favors like approving the Spot ETH ETF. But policy is politics, and crypto has been winning the political battle for months. Maybe the Biden camp saw how many voters Trump could win with one pro-crypto comment and decided to pivot. May 23rd is the final deadline for the SEC's decision on the VanEck Spot Ether ETF's application. After months of speculation about a probable denial of Spot ETH ETFs, the SEC took action earlier this week. The SEC first asked financial managers to amend and refile their 19B4 filings on their proposed Spot Ether ETFs. Some analysts saw the move as a positive sign, swinging the potential chance of approval to 75% from 25%, right? So a lot of the argument previously was that there's been no engagement on this. The SEC was obviously going to deny and get sued and have to go to court and waste taxpayer dollars for months and months until the courts came back and say, hey, you can't deny this based on your logic, because you have no logic, and then eventually it would get approved. The fact that the SEC is turning around now and finally engaging with these filers and saying, hey, amend this, amend that, is very similar to what happened with the Bitcoin approval after they lost their battle in court, after wasting, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of taxpayer dollars to fight the inevitable, and waste everybody's time and money and prevent, people from accessing and having access to this ETF and basically going against the mandate of their mission. They lost in court, and this is a similar situation to what they did previously. Let's move along here. I thought this was kind of cool. This was interesting, right? So, Bitcoin is coming to Ethereum stalwart MetaMask sources. MetaMask is a giant in the Ethereum ecosystem, but it's poised to cross one of the biggest tribal divides in crypto. So MetaMask is like a browser wallet. I use it as a browser wallet. It integrates with your browser. You can use it on your phone. It's kind of like this extension wallet that you can connect a hardware wallet to, or you can just use it as a hot wallet. But it's very useful. It's very easy to sign transactions and sign smart contracts and do things. And it just kind of like lives in your browser, like a Google Translate or some other little browser tool. And you can just click on it and it'll show your wallet, etc. And it looks like they are also going to be integrating Bitcoin in this wallet, which seems, like a good idea. And quite frankly, with the growth in the Bitcoin ecosystem that we've seen, the more activity, the ordinals, the runes, all of those things, it might make sense to be able to utilize that to sign transactions and do things with your Bitcoin wallet through MetaMask. So interesting decision by them, and kind of a cool thing for those tech aficionados who are deep in the weeds of Web3. Next up, Solana overtakes Ethereum DEX volume. Is Ethereum slipping? Solana momentarily surpasses Ethereum in DEX volume due to lower fees and faster transactions, right? So this is interesting because people are very tribal in crypto, right? They're Bitcoin maximalists or they're Ethereum maximalists or whatever they are. I think you have to realize that the proof is in the pudding, right? And my least favorite thing with all these Bitcoin maximalists is like they want to cramp down on all these other things. And if there's a market for it, if this is a free market, right? This whole ethos of Bitcoin is it's a free market, right? So I don't understand where we get to this tribal mindset where if people want to participate and there's activity, there's actual network effects, Metcalfe's law occurring on chain, and people are using these networks. Who the hell are we to tell them not to use what they want to use, right? The whole ethos of Bitcoin is this idea of voluntarism, right? You can voluntarily participate, but there's no gun to your head. There's no violent person telling you have to use this or you have to do that. People over time, slowly, as they understand, they come to Bitcoin, they come to these different assets and they can use them if they want, right? So all this shows is that there's a lot of transaction activity now. Who knows what all of it is? Is it just temporary? Is it just meme coin? Who knows, right? So it looks like there is a lot of, a meme coin activity here. And although that might not be the greatest thing in the world, people will like to gamble. People like to do these types of things. And, who are we to tell people what to do with their money, right? The whole point of Web3 and crypto is to decentralize that control, allow people to make their own decisions, and allow people to learn from those decisions. So if these blockchains have activity, if there's fee spikes, if there's volume and activity on the network, that shows that there's value there, right? It's completely objective, right? The proof is in the pudding, right? Are people using these things? Are they useful for whatever purpose people want to use them for, right? There's value in that. Let's move along. This story was interesting. Humane AI Pin is a disaster. Founders already want to sell the company. 1 month after launch of its smartphone replacement, Humane already seems doomed. This is very disappointing to read. I was an early buyer of this device. Still haven't gotten it yet. I think they're onto something really cool here. Maybe they need to raise more money. But they seem to have this spatial computing device that can plug in with these different models, these large language models, and can help you with your workflow, with your daily flow. It has a camera, it has voice. And these founders, I think it's Imran and Bethany, they left Apple and, they raised a lot of money. I think, Sam Altman from OpenAI was a big funder of this operation and this project, this company. So it's very disappointing to see this if they want to just sell out the company. Hopefully this isn't the whole case and the whole story. I've been inside their Discord. I've been trying to get some answers, but sadly there really isn't much communication from the team yet. So hopefully they just want to, have more capital to expand and to improve things. I mean, I'm not sure why they're doing this now. And especially it doesn't look good when there's been a lot of bad, what we call FUD, fear and uncertainty and doubt about the product, right? And I can't form an opinion because I haven't used it yet. I haven't gotten my delivery yet after placing it a couple months ago. So hopefully there won't be any delay there and I will still get to test the device for myself. Let's move along to our X Factor takes of the day. First up, Alex Gladstein. America's debt has risen from 10 trillion to 35 trillion in the time since Bitcoin was created. That's an increase of 250% since Satoshi launched the code to the world. More US debt was issued in the last few years than in America's first few hundred years. What happens next, right? I just wanted to highlight this just to show you that, why fiat currencies over time historically always fail, right? Because there is no proof of work mechanism. There's no way to check and prevent the massive printing of money, right? Because that's an easy political thing to do. Whenever you're in a jam or a bad situation, the politicians love to just print trillions of dollars out of thin air. And that's not, just one side of the aisle. That's both sides of the aisle. That's, whoever's in power, because it's an easy solution. Just give money to people, just do that, right? So the debasement of the currency when you have a fiat currency with no actual constraints on that currency is just an inevitability. Let's go to our next take here. Here is Paul Grewal.eth. So he's the chief legal officer of Coinbase, and he has a lot of great content on here. But my favorite is when he just calls out the hypocrisy of Gary Gensler. So here he says, Gensler to Congress, 5/22/24. The security laws apply when crypto assets or crypto-related investment schemes are offered or sold as investment contracts. And then here he is later, a couple years earlier, saying to Congress that the exchanges trading in these crypto assets do not have a regulatory framework at the SEC, right? So he's just calling out the absolute and utter hypocrisy, but anybody who's been paying attention obviously knows that and doesn't need to be told that again. Here is Samuel Arms. Samuel Arms is the founder of the FBBA. It's our largest Bitcoin, crypto, and Web3 advocacy org here in Florida, and was largely responsible for the anti-CBDC bill that has been pushed through here and is now being pushed through everywhere, including in Congress. So here is his post. Biden is going full anti-crypto. This is the text I just got from his campaign. They are doubling down and trying to raise funds by linking crypto with big oil. Who are you voting for? This was a very strange one, right? So I don't know if this is an AI generated, if Joe Biden's fallen asleep here or what. So please pitch in what you can today. Folks, this couldn't be any more serious. Cryptocurrency executives and oil barons are coming out of the woodwork for Trump. I mean, I don't know. This is a very silly, kind of wild thing to say, right? So I don't know who's pushing the messaging here, but very strange. Adam Cochran here. He's I believe he's a lawyer or a professor. He's got a lot of good content, but he says, honestly atrocious, even in crypto victory, Gensler finds a way to fail the American people by protecting you from native yield on a digital product. Imagine he only approved bond ETFs without the payments. I can't wait till he crawls back into whatever hole he came from. So here is basically Eric Balchunas saying that the SEC is not going to allow staking on the assets inside the ETF, which kind of is really shitty for the average Joe who's investing in this thing. It's just another way for them to natively gain some yield on this product by, having this Ethereum inside of the ETF just being just provide native staking to the network, right? Providing security for the network. While it's sitting there, it might as well be earning a little bit of yield off of that. You're not lending it to any individuals. You are essentially just participating in the consensus itself of the network, right? Which is mathematically in the code, which releases the new coin supply and processes transactions right through these nodes. So the hypocrisy of what he's calling out here is, imagine if he only approved bond ETFs, right? ETFs that hold a bunch of bonds, but you didn't get the revenue that the bond paid, right? So if you're buying a treasury bond and it's paying 7% or whatever, imagine if you just held the bond but you didn't get the revenue from that inside the ETF. It just doesn't make any sense, right? So he's just calling out the bullshit. Google isn't just the world's biggest purveyor of information, it is also the world's biggest censor. Dr. Robert Epstein discusses Google's censorship and how it manipulates us. So here's Elon Musk tweeting about his post that he typed into Google Query. So he goes into the browser and he types in "why censorship." So what does Google do? It is feeding you this propaganda. It's telling you, it's trying to autofill your word, and it's saying why censorship is important. And then the second choice is why censorship is important in social media, right? So they are pushing this propaganda bullshit narrative, and subconsciously to you that you wouldn't even think about it, right? So, instead of saying why censorship is bullshit and anti-American or whatever, they're telling you why censorship is important. They want to, this is like subtle brainwashing. I mean, this is the kind of bullshit that they do that's so fucking frustrating. It's so dishonest. It's such a lack of integrity. And it's sad that they're not constantly being called out for this stuff, but they just do it behind the scenes subtly to try to socially engineer and brainwash you. So great example here. They've gotten away with this for so long, and these woke individuals that are sitting there in Google headquarters, creating these algorithms and subtly socially engineering people and biasing results and doing all this shit. I mean, they should be called out for the con artists and the bullshit artists that they are. Here is David Hoffman from Bankless. I'm not going to celebrate Donald Trump accepting crypto donations. It's trivial. Thinking it's embracing the industry is naive. Trump has not shown any true commitment to crypto. So far, we are just another cow for him to milk. So, terrible take here by David Hoffman. Very, very bad take in my opinion. Here's my comment on that. This is a pretty bad take. The guy has done a pretty solid 180. Him and his wife started launching NFT collections, and he has smart people like Vivek Ramaswamy in his ear, educating him and getting him up to speed. He gets the TLDR that it equals jobs plus innovation in the USA. So this is something that, I've talked at length about, right? So aside from RFK Jr. now left in the race, this is really the only other option. I mean, it's just undeniable. It's not like he's this rah, just totally bullshitting, trying to get, crypto voters. He just gets it, right? I mean, it's just kind of like a soft endorsement that like, okay, I get it. It's jobs, it's innovation. They don't want to, the other side doesn't really want to let you do this. He sees the kind of bullshit that's happening behind the scenes. And the guy is literally launching NFT collections, selling these NFTs and then meeting people that own his NFTs. What else do you want? I mean, that's like the coolest fucking thing ever, right? I mean, he's got Ryan Selkis meeting him and talking to him because he bought his NFT collection and he's providing access to him, right? I mean, that is like a cool demonstration of the utility that comes with NFTs and non-fungible tokens. I mean, what other, advocation for Web3 do you want there? I mean, that is like probably one of the coolest things I've seen. And if you're actually paying attention, David, you'd see, his evolution. You'd watch that. I can't remember that executive's name who was part of his previous administration. It looked like he wrote some tweet and had Trump post it. It was like some tweet that's like anti-Bitcoin. It was like, this guy didn't write this tweet. This guy gave it to him and he just posted it. Like, but you can see that how he's changed his mind, how he's evolved after he got out of office. His wife started launching some art collections on Ethereum. She started playing with the technology, his kids and the people around him. Then you see he launched his own NFT collection, which included, private access to him, another utility that has obviously been useful because Ryan Selkis was able to go to his Mar-a-Lago event and basically pitch him on crypto, have his ear and have the industry actually get a chance to talk to him and educate him even further, right? We watched Vivek Ramaswamy, step down from his campaign. If you listen to him before he stepped down, he totally gets digital assets. He totally gets Web3 and he totally gets crypto. He did the time and the due diligence to understand the industry. The only other candidate that did that was RFK Jr., right? If you went to Bitcoin Miami, you watched him talk about it and, he really freaking gets it, right? His latest idea about putting the government budget on a blockchain so the entire people, all the taxpayers can actually see where all this money's going and call out the bullshit. I mean, that's a great fucking idea, But aside from Vivek and RFK Jr., Vivek orange-pilled Trump. He got in his ear afterwards, and you watch Trump's message. You watch how he went to Mar-a-Lago and talked to him and basically got in his ear and educated him, right? And his kids are educating him. His wife's educating him. He's taking input and learning and growing, right? And then finally, he gets the idea of like, okay, hey, this is jobs. This is industry. This is like the next evolution of the internet, right? So you watch the evolution of it, right? Is the guy Jesus? Is the guy like the greatest guy in the world? No, we're not saying that. We're just saying that in this election that's up and coming, he's absolutely embracing the industry. He's absolutely, he's literally, the guy's literally having NFT events at his residence in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, like he's got the industry coming to him. If you bought his NFT, he's hanging out with you and talking to you and listening to you. I mean, what do you mean? That's not embracing crypto in the industry. I don't know what is, right? A couple more comments. Trump forced the Biden admin's hand to approve the ETF. They are scrambling to try to get back very important votes. The Biden admin has been very aggressively anti-crypto. Duh, this is an L take. I'm not giving Trump the credit for Biden's L. That goes to the crypto industry. I mean, if Trump wouldn't have embraced crypto at his event and had the industry come to his house, I don't know how you can't give him credit for that. That's just stupid. I think I'm not swooning for Trump because he acknowledged us. That's like much more than an acknowledgement, right? Launching an NFT collection, giving utility to NFT holders, and have them coming to your house with the NFT and having private access to him. That's literally the definition of bankless. Like that is like what it's all about. That's like, you're proving the technology usage of an Ethereum ETF. I just, the disconnect here is like the Trump derangement syndrome is just fascinating to me. Yeah. Wendy O says he has an NFT project. My favorite take is somewhere buried under here, but I don't know if I can dig it up here. Someone who just said like your beloved Dems have given you anti-crypto armies and choke point 2.0, something kind of funny, right? David and Ryan, they give, they've got great, Bankless is a great podcast. I'm not, fudding them at all. They do a great job. They have great guests on. They have great speakers on. The Trump derangement syndrome is strong. The media has been running full, anti-Trump messaging for so long. It's just infected so many people's brains. Here is a Yuval Noah Harari, actually read his book, Sapiens. Was a very interesting, really cool book. If you want to read a real cool story about humanity and learning about the different types of humans, we think that, Homo sapiens, people that you see today are the only type of humans that ever existed. Well, he'll go into I think it's Australopithecus, which is like, and a couple other, versions, obviously Neanderthals, but there was these pygmy humans, I think Homo floresiensis, that lived on these islands, and for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, and sort of basically became small, like little dwarf people, right? And they found their bones and they found these pygmy elephants that they used to, just a fascinating story of humanity, of the different types of humans. And his book is, I will give him a fantastic book. Now, his take on Bitcoin, very poor, very uneducated on the issue, obviously getting the WEF messaging and the Democrat messaging. When I say that Bitcoin is a currency of distrust, I'm just repeating what Bitcoin fans themselves say. There may be good reasons not to trust the banks and governments that create dollars, yens, and other currencies, but that doesn't change the fact that the preference for Bitcoin is based on distrust of human institutions. Why is this an alarming development? Because the whole purpose of money is to create trust between strangers. I agree. money is this neutral good in an economy that does create trust between strangers, right? Financial devices like currencies, bonds, and shares, 90% of which are just data in computers, build trust between millions of strangers, right? So money has existed for, a long time before we had computers. Who can pool their knowledge and resources together and cooperate. Human control. I would say that money itself has nothing to do with computers and was actually the first good in society that allowed human cooperation, that facilitated, these commodity monies and early proto monies, facilitated human cooperation and allowed Homo sapiens to elevate their game. The creation of some of these commodity and early monies is what allowed humans to cooperate and outcompete other forms of hominid. He wrote a book about a lot of this stuff. I think if he went down that rabbit hole, he'd be very intrigued by that. Humans control the world because we learned to do this. If we now lose trust in human institutions, so human institutions had absolutely nothing to do with the early creation of commodity monies, right? A lot of these commodity monies were formed by proof of work, right? Eccentric beads and necklaces, shells. These were natural, commodities that had some level of proof of work attached to building them and creating them. Time and energy, right? When you were barely surviving 100,000 years ago, you didn't know where your next meal would come. To spend 20 hours making an elaborate necklace, it must have had some use if you were going to waste all that time and energy and put all that effort into making that necklace, right? Well, the use was it allowed you to trade your energy. It allowed you to trade to, gain other things. And in a world that was largely trustless, right? Money itself you use money because you don't trust the other person, or you don't know the other, you don't really know their intentions. You don't know if you can trust them in the future. If they're going to, if you give them some food, will they give you food later? We don't really know, right? With your family, with your close friends, you can have that relationship based on trust. But with another tribe of humans who you don't know, who, you might never see again, or you only see once a year, are you really just going to give them half of your food if you can't, you just don't really know them very well, right? Usually those, tribes that went up against each other, they might have been antagonistic, right? So how do you have that cooperation? Well, it's not human institutions. It's the fact that you have commodity monies that allowed you to say, hey, look, we've made this necklace was forged with tons of hours of work. We'll give you this beautiful beaded necklace in this beautiful bracelets of beads and different commodity monies that we formed here, or this block of salt for your buffalo meat that you hunted, right? And then later on, they can trade back those goods and serve those items, right, when they need, say, fish, because the buffalo's herd is no longer around. So I hope that humanity finds a way to build trustworthy human institutions instead of adopting technologies of distrust, right? So the problem with, and as Satoshi says here, I'll list his quote. He said, I told him to dig a little bit deeper, put 10 to 20 hours in studying Bitcoin, and you'll arrive at different conclusions. So as Satoshi says, the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Banks must be trusted to hold our money and transfer it electronically, but they lend it out in waves of credit bubbles with barely a fraction in reserve, right? 2008 financial crisis was a perfect example of this. We can go deep on these things. When you put humans into the loop, even if many of them behave well for a while, you're eventually going to find someone who misbehaves, right? The easiest solution is when you can debase a currency and, you can take people's life energy that they've worked hard to accumulate and save their life energy in a money, in a currency, and you can just massively debase that currency by pressing a button and printing trillions out of thin air. You're stealing from all those people. I mean, that's theft. I mean, honestly, it's theft, right? So Bitcoin fixes this. And, as we say in the Bitcoin and crypto community, virus and numerous, which is, trust in numbers, faith in numbers, right? You're trusting the mathematical code of the protocol itself. You are not trusting humans. Humans can transact and use the money and they can trust each other on that level, but the money itself is trustless in a way, right? You're not trusting anything. You're just trusting, it's a virus and numerous. You're trusting the numbers, you're trusting the mathematics, you're trusting the code, the open source code. Robert Breedlove, had a great conversation with him at Bitcoin Day Miami about a week ago. It's up on YouTube. Feel free to go check it out. We talked about a lot of cool stuff. He's one of my favorite philosophers when it comes to the history of money and when it comes to Bitcoin itself. So, like gold, Bitcoin is a supranational form of money, meaning that no government need permit its use, nor can it be eliminated unilaterally by regulation. Unlike gold, Bitcoin does not require centralization of custody to scale as money, nor is it easily confiscated by force. And I think these are the characteristics of money that Bitcoin has that make it a better version of gold that make it a better money for all of humanity and for humankind, right? Gold was largely centralized, right? People were not carrying gold bars around to transact. That gold, was stored at a central depository, and then notes were issued off that, which were claim checks on that gold. And that process was abused, right? Governments were able to come in and basically nationalize these private banks and sever the relationship of the gold, the claims check, where you could go back and actually get your hard money. You could no longer do that with the fiat money, which is what we have. And now you can see the massive levels of inflation and what's happening in society, right? People's savings are being stolen, because it's very easy to press a button and print trillions of dollars out of thin air, right? That's where Bitcoin comes into the equation and stops this. Gold is very, very prone to being centralized. Gold is not very divisible, right? So if you want to buy a sandwich or a small value item, you can't divide that piece of gold, right? That's why we have, other forms of money that are better at that aspect of things. Here is Corey DeAngelis. The reason I highlighted this post was just to describe what happens in a fiat system, right? So when it comes to money and it comes to governments and the growth of these institutions, the government school system has become more of a jobs program for adults than an education initiative for kids. Growth in administrative staff, principals, teachers, and students in public schools, percent change since 2000, right? So just in the past, 20 plus years, you see this massive growth in administrative staff and principals and assistant principals and students. There's not more students, right? Students is only grown by about 8%. This bureaucracy that forms around this, you'd think that if we have all this extra bureaucracy in the public education system, are the students getting better test results? Are they getting better scores? And the answer to that is no. Scores are going down. So why are we hiring more people? Just throwing money at a problem doesn't necessarily solve the problem, right? You're creating this giant bureaucracy around this thing without, what's the point of schools? Is to educate people. Are people becoming more educated? Is that what's changing? And if the answer is no, then why are we hiring all these more people when they're making the problem worse, right? So this is what happens. This is the type of thing that's enabled on a fiat standard, and the quality of our education system has not gone up, right? It hasn't really gotten better. The burden on the taxpayer has drastically increased. The government has absolutely no right to surveil every financial transaction you make. It wants you to think that it does, but it does not. And you have every right not to let it. Fantastic. I love that. He says, the irony is that people actually have the right to surveil every financial transaction their government makes, but the government has somehow made people forget this, and it worked. This is just fascinating to me, right? I mean, these are public institutions, right? They should be accountable to the public. We are private citizens, right? We have the Constitution, we have rights. But, now somehow this has been convinced in society that we just need to accept this massive KYC AML surveillance regime that violates the Constitution. Scarlett Johansson has just issued this statement on OpenAI. I have confirmed its authenticity directly with her publicist. Last September, I received an offer from Sam Altman, who wanted me to hire me to voice the current ChatGPT 4.0 system. He told me that he felt that by my voicing the system, I could bridge the gap between tech companies and creatives and help consumers to feel comfortable with the seismic shift concerning humans and AI. He said he felt that my voice would be comforting to people. After much consideration and for personal reasons, declined the offer. 9 months later, my friends, family, and the general public all noted how much the newest system named Sky sounded like me. When I heard the release demo, I was shocked, angered, and in disbelief that Mr. Altman would pursue a voice that sounded so eerily similar to mine that my closest friends and news outlets could not tell the difference. Mr. Altman even insinuated that the similarity was intentional, tweeting a single word, her, a reference to the film in which I voiced a chat system, Samantha, who forms an intimate relationship with a human. 2 days before the ChatGPT 4.0 demo was released, Mr. Altman contacted my agent asking me to reconsider. Before we could connect, the system was out there. As a result of their actions, I was forced to hire legal counsel, who wrote 2 letters to Mr. Altman and OpenAI, setting out what they had done and asking them to detail the exact process by which they created the Sky voice. Consequently, OpenAI reluctantly agreed to take down the Sky voice. In a time when we are all grappling with deepfakes and the protection of our own likeness, our own work, our own identities, I believe these are questions that deserve absolute clarity. I look forward to resolution in the form of transparency and the passage of appropriate legislation to help ensure that individual rights are protected. Very interesting. When she's asking for transparency here, you'd think OpenAI would provide open transparency, right? But of course, that is not the case. This was very intentional, and it's kind of like very unethical, right? She obviously didn't want to have her voice be a part of this, yet you decided, when she told you no, you went behind her back and sort of did it anyway, right? It's kind of like a giant, intellectual theft, a kind of giant fuck you. And this is why a lot of these, tech executives, right? I mean, they're blurring the lines between things that are ethical and unethical, right? I wanted to just highlight why you should not worship these people. We want a transparency and accountability, right? So, yes, OpenAI is pushing the envelope and doing great things for humanity and, providing, interesting and great tools for humanity. But at the same coin, some of this stuff is a little unethical, right? Very unethical, I think, actually. So let's call it out when we see stuff like this happen. Next up, Eric Balchunas. The Ethness stakes is pretty good. Nice look at all the entrants dealing with this fire drill. Hearing the SEC wants revised 19B4s returned to them by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, based on a bunch of comments they just received today, for likely approval as soon as Wednesday. So this was a post from May 20th. Just kind of goes to highlight the engagement that's happening on the Ethereum ETF. The SEC, they realized, hey, if we do this, we might cost the Democrats the election. So instead of just doing what's right for the American people, they are trying to score political points here, which, just very disappointing. Another post from TechWatch Projects. Google's extensive data access is a major concern, especially when it comes to educational institutions. Many major universities, i.e. the University of California system, utilizes Google software. Think about all the emails and attachments sent, not only in just universities, but also elementary, middle, and high schools. Our data remains unsafe. It may be free software, but we pay with our freedom. Interesting point here by Dr. Robert Epstein, of course, another great one. Do we really want Google having all of our kids' data so they can socially engineer and subtly brainwash them with all their propaganda? And I think the answer is no. So I think there needs to be some attention to this. If Google is providing this to these universities and to these schools, if tax dollars are being used to fund these institutions and schools, children's data should not be given freely to Google. They should not have access to kids' data. They should not have access to people's data, their habits, all of these different things. Very dystopian, very disturbing. And thank you for calling attention to this, Mr. Epstein. Dr. Epstein. Here's an interesting post. Bitcoin will compete with AI for energy. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, on CNBC. The AI data centers are going to require more power than anything we could ever imagine. Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and many of the big tech are hunting for sources of energy. This is very bad news for Bitcoin. Places where miners are getting cheap energy will be hunted by AI tech. Norway wants to pass a data center law restricting Bitcoin miners. Who will that profit to? AI companies. Ethereum is not in competition with AI for energy. If anything, Ethereum is in collaboration with AI agents to be able to use the new financial system. In an energy-scarce environment, Ethereum shines because of proof of stake. Ethereum is well positioned for an AI future. So I agree with some of his points, but not all of them. No, this is not very bad news for Bitcoin. I really don't think that is quite the case. I think Bitcoin has this unique ability to be located anywhere. It has this unique ability to be in the middle of a jungle or, at a methane landfill. Bitcoin doesn't require high quality internet. It doesn't require fiber. It just needs a very basic connection, right? Starlink even works in a lot of these remote locations, whether you're in the middle of a, natural gas pipeline that has a flare leak, or you're at a methane, landfill, or you're in the middle of Africa at a small site, right? Those are not optimal places to put a AI compute data center, right? AI data center needs to have 100, 10, 20, 100 gigs of fiber. So it can't just be located anywhere. Also, the margins on AI processing and providing high performance compute is massively larger than the margins on mining. So, it doesn't matter if they're paying a premium for electrical prices, they're still going to be making 20 times what their premium is, right? So they could be paying residential energy rates even potentially, and still be massively in the green. Whereas Bitcoin is looking for the absolute cheapest energy, location agnostic. AI data centers, are not going to be location agnostic. They're not just going to be just looking for the cheapest energy. So there is crossover there. Yes, both need a massive amount of energy, but the beautiful thing about Bitcoin mining especially is that it incentivizes the growth of all this green energy. Whereas data center loads are very different, right? You miss out on a lot of the opportunities that Bitcoin mining provides. Bitcoin mining can be shut off at a moment's notice, right? There's these curtailments, there's these power sharing programs that you can do that are very, advantageous to the electrical company. And they're one of the very few the industries that can actually do that can just shut off miners for an hour at a time. If you got OpenAI with a data center or these huge, compute centers, they're not going to shut off those data centers for an hour or two just because there's a, that load is not flexible like Bitcoin mining loads are. That load is not location agnostic like Bitcoin. OpenAI is not just going to shut off 100 megawatts of their high performance compute, just that is powering ChatGPT-4, right? That they would take a massive hit on their business, right? They don't have that same flexibility. AI does not have that same flexibility that Bitcoin mining has, right? So different strokes for different folks. I see what he's getting out here, but he's just a little off base on some of the minutiae and the details here. Another post here by Adam Cochran. Will respectfully disagree here. So here Nick Carter has a post where he says, the Biden admin is marginally taking their foot off our neck for cheap political points because junior staffers showed them scary internal polls. Don't be placated. We still need a clean house and total regime change. So here's an alternative view to that from Adam Cochran. I actually agree more with Nick than I do with Adam Cochran. He says, we'll respectfully disagree here. Schumer and Dems broke with Biden after a veto flex to vote against a bill. Then head of the FDIC pushed to step down and exec clearly arm twisting a neutral agency. This is not political placating. It's one of two things. I think that they're not really sure here what's going on. They're trying to figure this all out. They're kind of shocked that Trump pivoted to be pro crypto and pro Web3 and was very vocal about it. So they're not sure. They watched him shooting up in the poll. I think he's like at 55% and Joe Biden's at like 30% in the last polls I looked at, and I looked at a couple different betting sites. I mean, that is a massive gap. Currently, I mean, obviously anything can happen in the next 3 or 4 or 5 months, but it's a pretty big gap. So I think that they're looking at, again, because it's a huge swing state voter issue, right? And Trump has embraced Web3. So I think there is a rift here between all these. They're kind of shell-shocked and not sure. Oh, shit, they're finding out what we're doing with Choke Point 2.0 and what we've been doing behind the scenes with this sexual harasser Gruenberg and the FDIC. Oh my God, Elizabeth Warren's anti-crypto army isn't working. Oh, we got bipartisan support. Some of our members are breaking rakes over here and this bill is going to pass. Oh, they're repealing, SAB 121, which was basically an unconstitutional, unethical action by the SEC. So I think they're just trying to figure it all out, and this is all happening so fast. So then he says, or White House taking back financial regulation policy out of Warren's court. Warren's messaging hasn't changed, and as of last week was supported in exec branch messaging. Again, I don't think much of this, this was a post, this was from, May 20th, a couple days ago. Since then, we've seen these posts still come out, like Joe Biden's fundraising post came out saying, wealthy crypto executives and oil barons, and, and then they're posting all this stuff today that's basically saying like, don't pass FIT21. So I don't really think we're there yet. Someone with authority has concluded she has lost the plot and is making the admin look incompetent. I think there's no doubt about that. But the majority leader doesn't break rank with his party's president on a veto flex over junior analyst numbers. This is a major shift and critical opportunity for crypto lobbyists to stop being one-sided zealots and build bridges to both sides of the aisle. And there are some people like that, Senator Ron Wyden, I think Kristen Gillibrand. I think the industry has been building those bridges with the people that are operating in good faith, right? The problem is most of these people aren't operating in good faith, right? We should not make the mistake of looking a gift horse in the mouth, but I think he's just a little off base here with the overall analysis. Dennis Porter, we need to talk a lot more about the incredibly positive impact that Bitcoin will have on society. Has the ability to bank the unbanked, provide financial services to the underprivileged, offer anti-discrimination money, and improve cross-border payments. Powerful. And I think this is the aspect that many on the left side of the aisle, the progressives, per se, right, haven't really fully understood and embraced, right? They haven't done the work to really understand how this is actually a more inclusive financial system, how it actually empowers people all over the world. 3+ billion people on this planet who live under authoritarian regimes, don't have, bank accounts or IDs to comply with the KYC AML regime, that don't have, much of anything, that, might have multiple children and live in a war-torn area or with a government that's hyperinflating their currency, like in Zimbabwe and Venezuela and some of these places, or that doesn't have access to any kind of financial infrastructure, right? So this idea to just have a smartphone and be able to press a couple buttons and generate a public and private key, a wallet with a password, basically a bank account on demand to now participate in the financial system and be able to hold whether it be a stable coin, like a US dollar-based backed stable coin, to now be able to hold dollars, anywhere in the world, or to have something like Bitcoin, which is like a long-term savings account, right? That, mathematically, protects your purchasing power over time. Although there may be short-term volatility, you know that your currency isn't going to just trend to be worthless like most of these hyperinflating currencies, right? So I think, this is the messaging that really needs to get out, and people need to do a little bit more due diligence here on the left side of the aisle. Adam Cochran, another take here from today. All the proof you need that this just isn't a fluke. The White House bailed on the veto. SAB 121 was repealed by both the House and bipartisanship in the Senate. So, why would he waste a veto on something that passed in a bipartisan manner in both chambers? I mean, it was just a no-brainer. It would have been a terrible hill to die on for an obscure accounting rule that, the SEC didn't follow procedure to begin with. So White House bailed on the veto and issued a statement in which they call for a productive framework to promote digital assets and payment innovation in America. This isn't just about one ETF or one vote. This is an entire change in messaging and strategy. I cannot begin to tell you how big a deal this is. The White House has just given other Dems a pass to now support crypto and blockchain innovation and has backed off on blocking via authority. Like the Battle of Saratoga and the Revolutionary War, this signals the beginning of the end, a major victory, a shifting of alliances, and the enemies without support or resupply. After decades of indecision, confusion, and chilling effects, blockchains in America will finally be open for business. I think he's still a little bit off base here, right? So here it is. The administration opposes passage of HR 4763, which would affect the regulatory structure for digital assets in the United States, right? So they're opposing still the bill that, has bipartisan support and that is going through the House of Representatives right now, and that passed today, right? So this isn't really, full on changing of messaging. This is like cheap bullshit. They're just saying the administration is eager to work with Congress to ensure a comprehensive and balanced regulatory framework for digital assets. Okay, well, the proof's in the pudding. What have you been doing for the past 4 years? You've been attacking the industry behind the scenes via Choke Point 2.0. You've been fucking letting Gary Gensler, lose in court over and over again, but for basically violating his role and his authority, just making shit up as you go. So I mean, this is just talk is cheap. This is just bullshit. You're just trying to keep some votes, but haven't done anything, right? All you've done is maybe now, stop wasting taxpayer monies to have Gary Gensler go try to, attack American companies and innovation in court for no fucking reason. And, now you're going to pull off the gas from blocking a ETF that really should be approved no matter what, because it allows more people to have access to an investment in a safe manner, in a custodial manner, within their regulated accounts, right? I mean, all you're doing is saying, hey, we're not going to waste taxpayer money to fight this inevitable thing anymore. I mean, it's just kind of bullshit, but I guess we'll see how it plays out, right? So, building on existing authorities which will promote the responsible development of digital assets and payment innovation and help reinforce United States leadership in the goal. HR 4763 in its current form lacks sufficient protections for consumers and investors who engage in certain digital asset trends. What have you been doing the past 4 years, right? Actions speak for themselves, right? And talk is cheap. Your actions speak so loud, I can barely hear what you're saying. So all this is just a pivot to save votes at the 11th hour. Bitcoin Magazine, just in, U.S. Congressman says CBDCs threaten to destroy the American way of life. Unlike decentralized digital assets such as Bitcoin, CBDCs are monitored by the federal government. Yes, it's just nice to see this messaging coming out of Congress. Very true. And finally today, guys, this is kind of cool. This is a printer for wall murals. I thought this was really neat. Look at this thing. Cool idea for a business. It's kind of wild what it's capable of, right? Very, very cool. Very, very cool. All right, guys. Stay safe, stay blessed, never stop learning, and keep an open mind. Thanks for listening. Have a nice day.